On this episode of Honda K24 swapping our Miata, we plug in some wires, I play some saxophone, and we get our car almost ready to give it its first start. Welcome back to Cashed Out Cars for another episode of K24 swapping this Miata. In today's video, we are starting off by putting some wiring into this car and starting to get this thing all ready to be plugged in. And then towards the end of this video, we'll start putting on things like the intake and the exhaust and actually plugging in all of the wiring that we're doing now. So this here is the engine harness. Previously, Matt did a lot of the conversion harness stuff in this car. And once we're all set with this, we should be able to basically plug everything in, get that intake and exhaust on, and then move forward with eventually starting the car. So the first thing that we need to do is get this harness into the engine bay. To do that, we popped off that big grommet there, which is where the main harness comes out into the engine bay, and now we're going to start feeding that harness through that hole. Oh dude, I see the VTEC wire.
Yeah.
I see the VTEC wire.
Yeah.
So now we have most of this harness here pulled through that firewall, and now we just need to pull the rest of the length through. Now this wasn't really too bad, you just have to be really careful here so you're not going to break wires, miss sensors, and mess up the harness. Alright, so now Matt is going ahead and plugging in this harness. These things are nicely labeled, they have all those little white tapes on there. There we got the VTEC wire again, love to see that. And we're just plugging everything in where we know it goes. Now, this will give us a general sense of where the harness will sit in here, and then we'll start getting the more tricky stuff that we might not know where it goes, that might not be as obvious. But yeah, we're just going through and plugging everything in. Now, this harness was purchased through K-Power, and this is not a custom harness that we made. That would take a very long time, and this saves a ton of time being a plug-and-play harness.
It's all about just taking your time with this.
Yeah.
Double checking if you're not sure. Because you do not want to damage any of this. It's going to be a pain to fix if you don't have the right tools.
Yeah. Yeah, pain to fix, and then just troubleshooting. If you put stuff in the wrong place would suck. So yeah, definitely take your time with this. Matt's more confident with it than I am. I'm just sort of watching right now. Alright, so Matt just went through this side, and everything went well except for that sensor that goes into the alternator there. That connector just does not line up properly. You wanted to show him what's going on with it real quick?
Yeah, so you can see there's a couple of notches on this part of the connector, and they're a little bit offset towards the front of the connector. Whereas on this, we can reference this is the back of the connector because there's that little notch that's supposed to capture this. And these cutouts are towards the back of the connector. So it just doesn't line up. It doesn't fit. So I don't know if I have the wrong alternator, even though it's the one that came with the engine.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll look into it. And Matt has the old wiring off of that motor, so we're going to check that. But that's the only snag we've hit so far with this. Alright, so now Matt's just popping in the ECU. This is a Honda K Pro. And we're just going to see where it's going to sit over here and see if the connectors will plug into it.
So this is the connection between the engine harness and the conversion harness right here.
Okay.
That kind of tripped me up at first because I thought this was supposed to fit into the ECU, and it definitely doesn't. So I think all these white connectors are what actually goes in, and there's only one spot that will actually fit each of them.
It's a lot of connectors.
Yeah. This one here. So I think that's everything.
Alright, so now Matt is mocking up the downpipe on here. Now this is a K24 Z3. It's not an A2 or any different variant here. So we have the single exhaust port there that manifold comes off of, which is pretty cool. Now this thing is a 3-inch exhaust, so it's taking up a lot of room here, and it's pretty tight over on this side because on a stock Miata, the exhaust actually comes out on the other side. So we're just trying to see how much clearance do we have, how's this thing fit, and then we'll think about actually bolting it up for real. Alright, so this section of downpipe is mocked up, and it is actually contacting that little piece of the engine bay there, and Matt said that it is not uncommon for them to need to shave this down a little bit, so that's what we're going to do to get that to fit. Now I've got this thing clearanced out pretty nice, and we're going to put that downpipe on. Alright, this downpipe is on there. That exhaust is nicely clearanced right there. I tried to give as much space as possible because I don't know how much this thing's going to be torquing around and moving once we actually get this thing up and running. I got that on there without too many problems, and now we're ready to move on to the full exhaust, which will be later in this video. Right now we can go check out what Matt's doing over here.
I'm just pulling apart the starter and charging harness that came on the K24. We're going to salvage some parts of this to extend the Miata starter and alternator harness over to the other side of the K24.
Sweet. And is this pretty straightforward? You're just stripping off all of the wrap on it, and then we'll be able to cut it and splice it in?
Yeah, pretty much. We just figured out what was what by laying it out on the engine. Obviously the starter and alternator are in the stock positions, so it's pretty clear by the lengths and which connectors fit where. Just using that, you can figure out where different parts go.
Sweet. Now we're going ahead and re-securing the fuse block and this wiper container here just to start cleaning stuff back up, and then we'll move forward with the bigger steps. Alright, so right now we're also working on cutting these coolant hoses. Matt will show you where he just cut these lengths for.
Yeah, so there are 2 ports on the thermostat housing. This is the thermostat housing adapter that I bought from Track Tough. So this longer one, I believe this back black one runs from there up to the heater core up here. I'm not sure exactly which port, but I'll update you on that. And then the slightly shorter one runs from the shiny port right there, and there's a 90-degree barb fitting that will be right on the bottom of the intake right here. So I may even have to shorten this a little bit.
Cool. And then also we were working on splicing in our wiring for the starter and the alternator, and all was going pretty good. We got some butt splices here, and for the smaller wire we were able to do it. This was the biggest one that we could get at the local AutoZone, and it's really not quite big enough, so we're gonna have to find another solution for that, but it's coming along. Alright, next up we have another very exciting piece to install on the engine here, and that is this nice intake manifold. So this is a cast piece. It looks really sweet. Once it's on there, we'll show you how it looks even better on there, but yeah, it's really nice.
There it is.
Nice.
Nice and easy. Alright, so one thing that I messed up initially and had to order a part to fix it was the adapter for this TPS, the QD TPS, to the throttle body that comes in the K-Miata kit. You can see there's this kind of cutout here in the TPS, and it doesn't match anything on the throttle body, so this throttle body won't turn the TPS. K-Miata offers one, but there's another one from Skunk too. I don't know which one's better, how different they are. But these kind of fingers here will fit into the TPS and actually turn it when the throttle body moves.
Cool. Alright, so now that intake manifold is on and that throttle body is sitting down in place there, we did temporarily put the fuel rail here. We do need to still bolt that stuff up, but we're just mocking everything up now. Now Matt's going to put on his big ol' intake here, just to once again mock that up, see how everything will look and how it will fit, and then we'll just keep going with it. We're making really good progress, and I'm pretty happy, and Matt's extremely happy with how this is going.
Oh yeah. I can't wait for VTEC to kick in, bro.
Oh yeah. Be back in your element.
I'm back in my element.
Alright, so now we have the bottom half of that downpipe in place there, and as you can see, there are some lines that are really close to it that we're going to work on moving around and rerouting a little bit. Matt's down there. You can see him waving. Right now he's bolting up the exhaust because that exhaust has a little hanger on it that comes off of one of the transmission bolts, so we're just getting that all set up. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this exhaust bolted up. This should be a direct fit. All the hangers should be in place, and we really should be able to just put this on like a stock exhaust, other than obviously this is much bigger. Alright, that rear muffler is on there. It fell right into place really nicely, and now we're going to go ahead and put this mid-pipe in. This is a 2-piece mid-pipe, and we did have a little bit of trouble with that slip joint, but we got that straightened out, and now we're going to go ahead and get this on the car. Alright, so this thing is on here, and wow, this thing fits really awesome. So we can move this around, shake it in basically any direction that we could, and we're not banging off things, it's not rattling, so the only sound that we're going to get is pure Honda VTEC. Now we're going to go ahead and route some vacuum lines. Since vacuum lines themselves are pretty simple to get everything together, I'm going to install everything and then I'll explain what the vacuum line setup will be on this car. Alright, so Matt just went ahead and got the coolant line all routed here. It comes off of that coolant neck on the back of the engine, which I realize now is way too bright, but now you could see that. And then it just snicks around to the side here. We have a little bit of clearance to the exhaust. We'll probably throw some heat protection or something on there. And yeah, that is routed. I got the vacuum lines routed over here. I'm going to grab the light so you could see this too. Alright, so we teed off of the one vacuum port that was on the intake. We have a line running to our fuel pressure regulator here, a line running from our PCV valve here, and a line running from our brake booster right there. Alright, so with all that, that's going to wrap up this episode of the K-Miata swap. In the next episode, what are we going to be doing, Matt?
We're going to be filling it up with oil, coolant, and giving it a start.
Yeah, should be the first start. Should be really exciting. We're really looking forward to it. If you want to see that right now, you could head over to my Patreon account where that video is live. If you don't want to do that, just wait a little bit longer and it will be out here on the channel. With all that, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more, and I hope you stick around for the next one. Take care.